Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I went out of town to to the Memphis this weekend, me and the lady. And you know, I know a little shop in Memphis. They got the goods, got it's a real like a botanical type thing. And they got burdock root. Now I know some of y'all heard of burdock root because Dr. Sebi talked about it. But this is the only place I've ever seen that has like big old burdock roots. And burdock is the strangest thing. It's a big old long root, but if you juice it, it tastes like hot cocoa, and it's like a miracle. Um, Lowers your blood pressure. It has all these health benefits. So forgive me, I was juicing some burdock root. So we got a question. This is kind of deep today. We're going all the way in since it's Black History Month. Let me go ahead and put Exhibit A in the jumbotron, if you will. Um, this is I saw this today at the at a school. It says Black History Month, right? And Black History Month. Oh, the pictures is corrupted. The file's corrupted. Well, anyway, the Black History Month. It's not that deep of a picture, but what I've realized is Black History Month has the colors of red and green. You know, And for years, I thought that was innocent, like I guess, they used to tell me in high school it's for the red's for the blood, black is for the skin, the blood and the land, right? And green is for the land. Well, um, I've been all across West Africa, and the color, that bright green, don't look African to me. I've flown over the African continent. That bright green is not an African type of green. So I found out in a space about a year ago that the green in the flag was co-opted and finagled by Marcus Garvey. Wani, could you educate us on on how Marcus Garvey, what he had to do with the green?
Well, Marcus Garvey um, had the red, black, and green flag to symbolize the blood spilled, the shared Black experience, the Pan African part of the conversation, and a solidarity with Ireland. But because Pan Africanists make up their own stuff, and they lie and they try to rehabilitate him, they try to wash that away and tell us it was about the green land, which is usually the case in a lot of, when you see green on a lot of flags, that's usually the case. So, yeah, that's basically it. He had a relationship with Irish people in Ireland, and that's what it meant to him. But again, Pan Africanists make up their own stuff, just like they made up a backstory for Africans and told us that they had these strong family units and it takes a village to raise a child and all these other statements that just don't reflect reality in Africa.
Yeah, that's so basically what I'm trying to say is we don't need green in our flag because it's representative, as our sister Wani said, of Ireland. And we have to look at history to erase the mystery. When we look back at the Irish, with all due respect to Irish people, no vitriol intended. I'm just talking history. There is not a history of unity between Black Americans and Irish. Actually, we are alone. Dr. John Henry Clark said, "If you want a friend, look in the mirror." And that's what I hope the lesson that we're learning is, you know, what did Lenny Kravitz say? Luco me, you belong to me, I belong to you. We are each other's reflection, and we're here to protect foundational Black Americans, and we need to stop looking for outside friends because it never works, right? There are few diasporic groups that really should have an alliance, and I say should because they don't. with foundational Black Americans. But first, we have to start with each other. Now, let's get back on this green thing. So the question then becomes: did Ireland have a history of alliance with Black America? Short answer is no. Thank you. Let's look at what Dr. Howard Zinn says about Ireland, about the Irish when they got over here. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a little context. Let's do a little history lessons, shall we? Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm gonna do it. If you look back at the 13 colonies, first and foremost, keep in mind that the America started out as a colony of British nobility. You know, the 13 colonies. Well, what started to happen is our enslaved ancestors started to rebel from the plantations, and they would run away from the plantations, and they would run until they hit a Native American stronghold. Then our ancestors would amalgamate with the Native Americans, find a friend of my friend, find a friend of enemy of my enemy, and I found a friend. Therefore, we would join the Native Americans in striking the British nobility, and we were whooping their ass so good that just my aunt used to say, "You whooped you good, huh?" We was whooping the British. They asses so good, us being the Native Americans, and us being a foundation of Black Americans and enslaved Blacks and Native Americans, that the British nobility wrote home to Mama. They contacted the Queen and said, "Your Majesty, the colored people are killing us left and right. We need help. Backup, request backup." And the Queen reached out to a very brilliant creepy fucker named Captain James Oglethorpe. Now, Oglethorpe University in Atlanta in Buckhead is named after James Oglethorpe. A bunch of foundational Black Americans go there. I don't know why, but I digress. Well, um, Oglethorpe's tactic was a tactic of immigration as a weapon. Immigration was used as a tool to keep blacks in check, and it's been used ever since. One of my functions in these spaces and as an academic for my people is to let y'all know that vector of attack, because it's very successful and it's very old. Send immigrants over here to create a buffer class between us and the elites. Well, the first group of immigrants to come over as buffer class were the English. The English sent over their criminals, their degenerates. The academic canon calls them the debtor colony because a lot of them couldn't pay their damn bills, hence debtor. And a deal was struck with this quote unquote debtor colony, these degenerates, pedophiles, insane people. The deal was very simple. You come to the New World, which would later become America, and you attack these blacks, attack these Native Americans. You get them off our back, and we're going to give you unearned benefits, to quote Dr. Claude Anderson. I love it when Claude says unearned benefits. And that's exactly what they did. It was so successful, ladies and gentlemen, that the white nobility had time to basically organize. They organized, if y'all can think of the Join or Die cartoon by Benjamin Franklin, they organized in the first Congressional Congress to form the country. So I want y'all to hear what I just said. I just said, and I meant that the United States of America was created in diametric opposition to foundational Black Americans. Isn't that amazing? We initiated the Constitution. But back to the point at hand, the second group, back to the title, um, the first group of immigrants were English, right? So again, when foundational Black Americans, uh, when the Civil War was won, and Lincoln emancipated this enslaved blacks, excuse me, and we got together, got rid of Johnson, and put Ulysses S. Grant in to get Reconstruction. We started to rise up. And guess what? Just like before in the 1600s, when we were rising up on the British, they sent the buffer class in there to keep us in check. The same shit happened again. Y'all see a pattern, Black Americans? But this group that they sent over were the Irish. Now, with that being said, let's go to Dr. Howard Zinn, page 226 of his book. Dr. Howard Zinn says, basically, the immigrants from Ireland, well, I should say, quote, immigrants from Ireland fleeing starvation there when the potato crop failed were coming to America now, packed into old sailing ships. The stories of these ships differ only in detail from the accounts of the ships that either brought black slaves or later German, Italian, and Russian immigrants. You see that, ladies and gentlemen? It was the Irish. Then they sent Germans. Then they sent Italians, and a little known fact, they did send Russians over here. Dr. Howard Zinn says this is a contemporary account of the ship arriving from Ireland, detained from Gross Island on the Canada border. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but quote. On 18th of May, 1847, the Ukrainia from Cork with several hundred immigrants on board, a large proportion of them sick and dying from ship fever, were put into quarantine on Gross Isle. This is the first of the plague-smitten ships from Ireland, which that year sailed up St. Lawrence. But before the week of June, as many as 84 ships of various tonnage were driven by an easterly wind, and that the enormous number of vessels there was not one free from the taint of malignant typhus, the offspring of famine, and the foul shiphold, a tolerably quick passage occupied from 6 to 8 weeks. So these Irish, in their homeland, who were, to quote our brother Tariq Nasheed, failing in their homeland, said, we're going to get on a boat and we're going to go somewhere where we're going to have a better opportunity at the expense of foundational Black Americans. Ladies and gentlemen, that was baked in the cake. Y'all understand me? It's important to know that. It's important to know that they were coming over here to get a new start at our expense. That was a deal. Just like the Georgia Corporation, ladies and gentlemen. Just like the Georgia Corporation. Never forget that. Now, how did they feel about Black Americans? Well, let's think about it. How do you think they felt about us? Given the fact they were on ships that were stanking and full of typhoid, dying, vomiting. Wasn't as bad as when we was on the ships, but it was pretty bad. And they get over here and they could get off these ships and they see us balling out. They see us having Black Wall Street. They see us having Rosewood, Florida. See us in carriage and buggies, wearing good suits, walking around holding hands with our wife and daughters, right? How do you think they felt about that? Well, I'm going to tell you how they felt about that. Dr. Howard Zinn says, how could these Irish immigrants, themselves poor and despised, become sympathetic with the black slave who is becoming more and more the center of attention? Stop right there. The Irish hated us. They absolutely hated us, according to Dr. Howard Zinn. It was a jealousy thing. Dr. Howard Zinn then says, quote, the subject of agitation in the country, indeed, most working class activists at this time ignored the plight of blacks. Eli Moore, a New York trade union leader elected to Congress, argued in the House of Representatives against receiving abolitionist petitions. And Dr. Zen closes with this: racial hostility became an easy substitute for class frustration. What did that last part mean? That last part meant, according to Dr. Howard Zinn, if I may interpret, that these Irish were frustrated with their situation, frustrated that they failed in Ireland, frustrated that they were starving to death, frustrated that they was nasty on those ships, frustrated that they couldn't pay feed their daughters, frustrated that they had typhoid, they witnessed their brothers and sisters die of typhoid fever. And guess what? They needed a distraction, and the distraction they found in foundational Black Americans. I'm not gonna think about my problems anymore. I'm gonna focus on that black dude right there. And there it is. That is how Woodrow Wilson cronies could use these Irish to lynch us so profoundly that most of you that live up north have family down south, and me being a good old country Alabama boy got a whole bunch of family in in Detroit, whole bunch of family in Chicago, because these Irish immigrants who were put into a position to lynch us, put into the police departments, ran some of our ancestors to other states in search of opportunity and really in search of safety, like a lot of my family in Detroit and Chicago. So, what I want y'all to keep in mind, according to the title, why it's green and part of the Pan African flag, it came from what Wani said with Marcus Garvey and homage to Ireland. But I want to let you know, I want y'all to see a pattern. The pattern is as follows. The elite system of dominance in America reaches out to an immigrant group. Immigrant group makes a deal to come to America to keep the blacks off the dominant society's behind, and in return, they get resources, and in return, they have to serve in some type of authoritarian capacity. The English became the slave patrols. Does anybody know what the slave patrols became? The slave
You
patrol,
mean
ma'am.
Irish?
No, I'm saying the English became the slave patrols under James Oglethorpe, and the Irish became the police departments.
Oh.
Yeah, but the connection I want to draw is in 2025. We see an influx of Indians coming over here, and is it me or have I noticed that they are in a different position of authority? What is Vivek? He's a lawyer. Got it. I'm positing that they're being coming over here, put in a position of authority over us, and I'm arguing, according to historical text, that that's part of the deal of immigration used as a weapon.
Ooh. So let's review on Marcus Garvey and why I'm not sure how he keeps resurrecting himself, but he declared himself the provisional president of Africa, purchased some unseaworthy ships for the Black Star Line, committed mail fraud, and clashed with Black American leaders. So he had this alignment with white supremacists, and you can see how they have everything in common. White supremacists want to get Black Americans off of the soil that we're bonded to, and he wanted to, a foreigner came up here and wanted to remove us from our own land. Why didn't he want to do that with everybody? Why didn't he start in Jamaica? Why did he come up, argue with our leaders, and align himself with white supremacists who all agreed that we should leave? And then he probably was going to sink us on the ship since all the ships were not seaworthy. I don't understand what that was all about. But like I said, he aligned himself with Walter Plecker, who's a known racist, the Ku Klux Klan, and that Methodist preacher, Ernest Severe Cox, who he wrote a letter to saying the fact is that the modern Negro is a lazy, good for nothing slumberer. And after that, the Garvey Must Go campaign followed. There was also some statements that he made about Black Americans should not expect to ride on a train with white people because we have nothing to do with the railroad. Really? This goes to show you how immigrants have continuously come up here, don't know anything about us, but want to lead us. What is this disease these people have? Black Americans were enslaved by railroad companies, laid thousands of miles of full train tracks in the South and in the East. Black Americans patented railroad lubricants, mechanical devices, notably the real McCoy inventions. Uh, in the West, foreign paid labor laid just 700 miles of train tracks. And that was not just Chinese people. That was all of the immigrants here. Chinese people were a portion of it, and all these people could eke out was 700 miles, no full tracks, nothing. And then they abandoned it. Uh, Also happening on the train tracks, Black Americans taught these later country legends all of the techniques and singing that came from the railroad workers. So we have everything to do with trains and railroads. And so that statement, I believe, really was one of the final nail in the coffin on this guy, where they just said, you know what, you have to go because you have a lot of wrong takes, and you need to get yourself out of here. He also had these grandiose claims, and he dressed himself up in all this military garb. He was basically said he was the provisional president of Africa, so he planned to get us over somewhere and rule us. Now, this organization that he belonged to, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, they said he was a you know, very, very domineering and a tyrant to them. And they couldn't say anything. He clashed with everybody who was here representing us. And it sounds very familiar. This attitude is just cemented in their relationship with Black Americans. They come up, sucking up, acting like they're just, some kind of friend. And then the next thing you know, they're bossing us around. And then we have to run them out of town on a rail like we're doing right now with immigration. We welcome everyone in. We fight for all these immigration laws for years, since Frederick Douglass to 1965. We fought for people to be here. They have torn their tails, and now they are headed out.
Well, that's a
And that's basically it.
Well, that's a really good point, Wani, and I'm gonna drop a bomb because I went deep into studying on this after Denmark taught me about the whole Marcus Garvey. I didn't know about Marcus Garvey. As a matter of fact, I used to kind of be a cheerleader for Marcus Garvey without understanding what the hell I was talking about. I had to be educated. Well, when one thing y'all don't want to do is put me on the trail of some shit because I'll find some shit that I wasn't supposed to find. What I found, let's look at the time period. I got to do this one right. Hold on. Let me do this right. We're not going to play around with this. So in the time period, or as scholars like to call it, the zeitgeist. Zeitgeist means time ghost. If we look at the zeitgeist of the let's say 1912. In 1912, Woodrow Wilson, and let's do it super right. After the Civil War, um, Black Americans received emancipation, which means the its meaning is very argumentative, but I digress. Um, Black Americans, we was coming up, right? We were coming up because we had enough sense to put somebody in office that we could use, like Ulysses S. Grant. I'm seeing a similarity to Donald Trump with Ulysses S. Grant, but I digress. So keep in mind, Dr. Black Americans, get out your pen and paper and write this down. Um, Ulysses S. Grant granted us, no pun intended, helped to grant us Reconstruction, which was a form of, if you will, reparations, where Black women created the school system. Yes, ma'am, Black women, y'all created public schools, and we were getting our act together. Our dear brother, uh, uh, Booker T. Washington had a brilliant plan called industrial education where Black children were learning a trade. It was mandatory, like the fucking military. You had to do your service, right? No matter what you wanted to be, a lawyer, pastor, a medical doctor. If you were a boy, you were going to learn how to build a house. If you were a girl, you were going to learn how to make clothes. So this started a whole uh, culture of making money. We had an economy, and listening closely, Black Americans, we started to rise from the ashes and take mantle and gain status in the United States of America. Well, the Democratic regime did not like this. The Democratic Party has a long history of being the party of immigrants. That's going to be a whole nother space, but it's just a fact. And one of the uh, worst Democratic presidents ever elected was Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson created a rhetoric of, you remember when Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black, all that, what Professor Neely Fuller calls tacky, trashy, terroristic behavior. Well, Woodrow Wilson deceived black voters. According to Dr. Claude Anderson, Woodrow Wilson needed the black vote to win the presidential election. Stop right there. Woodrow Wilson needed us. right? Just like Kamala Harris needed us. Um, in 1912. In a formal statement to blacks, Wilson said he wished to see justice done to the colored people in every matter, not mere begrudging justice, but justice with liberality and cordial good feelings. Wilson further stated, I want to assure you, the Negroes, that should I become president of the United States, they may count on me for absolute fair dealing for everything by which I could assist in advancing the interests of their race in the United States. With such a public pronouncement, black leadership, we got to watch those damn leaders, air quotes, abandon the Republican Party and rush to support Wilson. W. Du Bois was one of the first to champion Wilson's candidate. W. Du Bois was, he meant well, but he was a traitor. Um, he was followed by Booker T. Washington. Booker T's hands were pushed. He had to. The NAACP, need I say any more? The National Independent League and the Color National Democratic League. The Black America responded to their leadership and gave Wilson their votes. Their 100,000 votes put Wilson over the top into the White House. After Wilson won the election, Congress drafted and sent to the president for his approval the greatest flood of new laws that discriminated against blacks that had ever been introduced by the United States Congress. What did those laws do? Let me skip a page here. Wilson encouraged, what did Wilson do? He encouraged the rigid maintenance of Jim Crow segregation in every department of the federal government in offices that traditionally hired blacks. Stop right there. Wilson basically eliminated our venues to get federal jobs to be unionized members. And who did he give it to? He gave it to the Irish. You got it? We used to be union members. We used to have the trades. We had the trades from slavery. We were the plumbers. We were the architects. Wilson derailed that shit and gave it to the Irish. Got it? Last but not least, um, uh, scores of blacks, according to Dr. Claude Anderson, scores of blacks were summarily fired. Blacks were not allowed to compete economically, still aren't. Throughout the South, abuse escalated. Lynching skyrocketed. Stop right there. Who the hell do you think was doing these lynchings? Descendants of the Irish. It was never personal, ladies and gentlemen. They wanted your union job. They wanted those blue collar jobs. They wanted those contracts. And the Irish, descendants of the Irish, ran us up out the South and ran us up north. The Dr. Claude Anderson says a little power or voice that blacks had stripped away from them. All sorts of schemes kept them from voting or having their cities' cries of pain heard. While his black supporters were being killed and abused, President Wilson failed to issue a single word in their defense. So, why did I bring that up with respect to the Irish? I brought it up to give you the time ghost of what was going on with the Irish. The Irish put their candidate Woodrow Wilson in office, but he needed us. Once he got our approval, he turned around and deceived us in every form or fashion. So, where does Marcus Garvey fit into this? Marcus Garvey being a failed opportunist. Wani, didn't Marcus Garvey fail in Jamaica? Could you tell us about his failures?
I don't know much about his failures other than he tried to do something similar and they weren't having it. They weren't interested in what he was talking about. It could have just been his style of leadership because they said he refused to share power and he was an authoritarian. So he just
All right.
he had an attitude about him.
And his attitude was traitoristic. Marcus Garvey, what I later found out, made deals with the dominant society. That's where the green in that damn flag came from. But let me give you some evidence to back up my bold words. According to Dr. Howard Zinn, quote, the Ku Klux Klan was revived in the 1920s. Stop right there. Who do you think filled the ranks of the fucking Klan? The Irish. That's your revival right there. You think it's a mistake that Woodrow Wilson gets his ass up in office and the Klan has a rebirth? Rebirth implies new membership. The new membership were the Irish, ladies and gentlemen. Um, the Ku Klux Klan was revived in the 1920s, quote, and it spread to the north. By 1924, it had 4.5 million members. Check this out. Quote, the NAACP seemed helpless in the face of the mob violence and race hatred everywhere. It didn't seem helpless. It wasn't going to do anything. It wasn't, the NAACP never had a history of helping blacks. They weren't helpless. They just wasn't going to help. Quote, the impossibility of the black person ever being considered equal in white America was the theme of the nationalist movement led in the 1920s by Marcus Garvey. So, you think it's a mistake that in the 20s, Woodrow Wilson gets in? In the 20s, Woodrow Wilson passes laws to kick us out of our power. In the 20s, Woodrow Wilson assists the Irish in filling the ranks of the Ku Klux Klan, and Marcus Messiah Garvey mysteriously shows up. Y'all heard what I said, but I didn't say, but I'm going to say it like a man. Marcus Garvey was a goddamn operative. He was an agent. That reading between the lines, and that's what you get. Marcus Garvey movement was to separate the black American's identity from his homeland. That's called psychological warfare, ladies and gentlemen. You don't hit your enemy with just one. Look at America. America don't hit the enemy with the Marines, just the Marines. You send in the Marines, but then you send in the Navy SEALs to take out leadership. Then you send in the Air Force to do reconnaissance. Then you send in the Navy to fucking bomb. You hitting them every which way. They ran us up out the South with these Irish in hoods and cloaks. But first they had to take our jobs, and the damn near death blow was to send a black man say, leave America. You don't have a good chance here. Go back home to Africa, somewhere that wasn't his home. He was an op. Dr. Howard Zinn says, but Garvey's movement, inspiring as it was to some blacks, could not make much headway against the powerful white supremacy currents of the post-war decade. I'm gonna argue it didn't make any headway because he was complicit. I want to point out like another side point, and I'll shut my mouth. Dr. Howard Zinn points out that Africans, and write this down, record it, do what you got to do, ladies and gentlemen. Africans could not bring their butts over to the United States during this time period. It was, as our brother Tariq Nasheed implies, it was the civil rights movement. We kicked in the door for Africans, and let me give you a little evidence for that. According to Dr. Howard Zinn, Congress in the 20s put an end to the dangerous, turbulent flood of immigrants between 1900 and 1920. Now, that flood of immigrants was not black, wasn't African people, wasn't melanated. It was the Irish. He says 14 million between 1900 and 1920. 14 million immigrants came over in 1900. That's ridiculous. How'd they get over here?
Did it say from where?
Uh, let's see.
Mostly Ireland?
I think so, but let's deduce. Dr. Howard Zinn says 14 million between 1900 and 1920 by passing laws setting immigrant quotas. The quotas favored, no, he doesn't say where. That's interesting. The quotas favored Anglo-Saxons, kept out the black and yellow, severely limiting the coming of Latinas, Slavs, and Jews. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. No African country could send more than 100 people. Let me say that shit one more time. No African country could send more than 100 people. 100 was the limit for China, for Bulgaria, for Palestine. 34,000 could come from England or Northern Ireland, but only there's your answer, Wani. England and Ireland. They were whitening up America.
Wow.
Isn't that
Mm-hmm.
deep? So, guys, I teach my students to use your power of deduction. My question to you, ladies and gentlemen, is why did the law set the quota to bring in so many English and Irish, so many quote unquote whites? Was it because America was already packed full of indigenous black people? Hint, hint, hint. But only 3,845 from Italy, 51,000. Listen to this. Here, Wani, here goes Germany again. Drum roll. 51,227 from Germany, but only 124 from Lithuania, 28,567 from Irish Free State, but only 2,248 from Russia. So America was flooding the land with Germans and Irish. and the Irish had absolute vitriol for the Black American
At that
at
point.
that
That's
point.
very interesting because there's like a little joke where they say there's a little bit of Irish in everyone. Well, that's because Irish women, indentured and free, took a lot of black men as mates and birthed a lot of black American children, which is represented in the maternal haplogroups in black Americans. As far as Irish men and black women, there was a period of time when there were some, I forget the year, I've got to look that up. There was just a short period of time when they had a severe shortage of Irish women due to some sort of disease, and a lot of Irish men and black women hooked up and had children, but they didn't continue to do that. It was like just a short period. So some people have that combo. Uh, Empress, did you want to say something? Oh, she's trying to come up. Hold on. Here the screen is
Uh
again.
oh,
Looking crazy.
I see her
No.
listening.
Oh, now she's a listener after I invited her up.
Yeah, it's acting crazy. I was looking for some evidence to kind of back up what Wani was saying. I'm not gonna find it in time. When I find it, I'll kind of interject
Which part?
about the Irish women making babies with black men. I I
Mm-hmm.
really want to hit y'all with some evidence that just blows that away. Basically, let me paraphrase it. So basically, Wani is telling the truth. In Georgia, there was some dam. I can't think of the name of it, but the Irish and blacks were working on the dam, and they were not dam. It was like a ravine, and uh they were getting together and having children. Like the basically the Irish women were choosing up on the brothers, like, I don't want no Irish dude, and they were having babies. So this point in time that I'm about to find marked when the system of elite said, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna turn the Irish white. It's so powerful. They basically they
Yes.
basically said, Irish, we're not gonna really give you that much money more money, but we're going to put you in leadership positions over the blacks. And that's when the Irish became, like, basically, I'm going to identify the date within a year of when Irish became white. And again, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The whiteness of the Irish was in diametric opposition to foundational black American men having sex. Isn't that crazy? It's like Dr.
Yes.
Francis Cress Welsing's theory is real. The main motivation with the racist isms in America is the black man getting having women choose up on him.
Now you see, the Irishmen were not rich, correct?
Correct.
And so there's no incentive for their women to pick them. So we have already established that the only way that a white man can get a woman is through financial, having their finances together. But that's not true for black American men. It's true for every other man on the planet, but not black American men.
Yeah, we can be working in a ditch, all you know what I'm saying? Like, working in a ditch. Imagine how nasty you are working in a ditch, you know what I'm saying? And the woman can still choose up on them. What is it about black men?
Black
Black
American men.
American men?
The other men have to have money. That's why you see the African men telling us about their degrees and all these things. We're the only group that our men don't have to do that.
How you gonna brag about it?
That's dangerous for other men around. That's very dangerous because if you're an Indian man or an Asian man or a white man or an African man, you're going to have money. You're going to have to present a dowry in some cases. You can't just walk up and say, "Hey," that's very, very unbalanced in the animal kingdom. That's unheard of. We don't even fit in with social norms in this case.
Whereas a black man just walk up and start smiling and then got it. You know what the little kids say? Got him. Got him. Yeah, that's right. All right, Capone, what's on your mind, bro?
Oh, good afternoon, my black lovely family, Sister Wani Professor. Good to see
Yes,
y'all.
sir.
Brother Arthur, I see you down in the ranks. How's and what's up, my brother? But yeah, Marcus Garvey. I was fooled by Marcus Garvey's professor. I ain't gonna lie. I was fooled with Dr. King as well. Learned history a little late on him. But as far as black men, we are always gonna attract whatever's great for us, regardless of what situation we are put in. That is just our destiny from what I've seen and my experience. I believe from my experience that when I see, don't be mad at me, Sister Wani, don't be mad at me, Room. When I see a black man with a white woman, that is great. Reason why is that is exterminating the white race by default. You know what I'm saying? And when I see a black woman with a white man, yeah, I'm kind of mad. But then again, they are not populating, white children. And I get I give a little face at it. But then again, I try to find the positives and things I don't like. But they are not making white babies. So that's increasing the time. I mean, speeding up the time on their extermination. But women know how to find alphas and how to find survival in the men they pick, unless they haven't learned how to do that yet and their survival instincts haven't kicked in. As being black men, we are natural survivors. That's why a lot of women gravitate towards us as black Americans. And I land on that.
Yep,
Right on.
there's the alpha within your group, and then there's the global alpha.
Right, right, right. I found it, ladies and gentlemen. It took a minute for me to find it, but it basically it was Brunswick, for those of you geeks like me in here. It's called Brunswick Canal in Georgia. So basically, according to Dr. Howard Zinn, when the Brunswick Canal was built in Georgia, the black slaves and white Irish workers were segregated. Got it? The excuse being that they would do violence against one another. That may have well have been true, but Fanny Kemble, the famous actress and wife of a planter, wrote this in her diary, in her journal. I'm sorry. She says, "quote But the Irish are not only quarrelers and rioters and fighters and drinkers and despisers of niggers. They are a passionate, impulsive, warm-hearted, generous people, much given to the powerful indignations which break out suddenly when not compelled to smolder sullenly. Pestilent sympathizers, too, and with a sufficient dose of American atmospheric air within their lungs, properly mixed with a right proportion of ardent spirits, there's no saying what they might actually take sympathy with the slaves and leave you to judge of the possible consequences. What she just said is the Irish in them ditches, them Irish women to hit that whiskey and then go looking for some soul pole. That's what she was saying. Um, you perceive, she also says, quote, you perceive, I am sure, that they can by no means be allowed to work together on the Brunswick Canal. Black men and Irish women were starting to make babies. You hear me? They said we both po, and the Irish women discovered something about the black men, and then uh, one of my professors used to say, "Word of mouth travels at the speed of light." Other Irish women start finding out something about black men, and the Irish women all of a sudden weren't talking to Irish men. And then check out this in 1802. Check this out. Then the system of elite domination, heard about this and said, "Oh, hell no," and initiated control. Dr. Howard Zinn said the need for slave control led to an ingenious device, paying poor whites, themselves so troublesome for 200 years of Southern history, to be the overseers of black labor and therefore buffers for black hatred. It all was related to having sexual relations with Irish women. That
You
is
know,
wild. Go
I
ahead.
never heard any women talking about how great African men were, though.
No, we talking about black American
I
men.
know, but I'm just
Mm,
saying.
mm-mm.
I just hear this gossip about Black American men. I hear complaints about African men.
Oh,
Sister
Hmm.
Wani, they on from my experience, because my sister married one of them little people from Africa, but From what I hear, the white people only use them as pets to this day.
Mm.
Wow. Tell me more about that. What does that mean?
Well, basically, because they they all, drool over white women and white acceptance. A white woman can go into a club in like Sudan or Nigeria or whatever and just choose five of these fools, get them all sick with AIDS, and then put them on their way. Because
Oh,
yeah, I mean, like I said, they come over here acting like they so much better, but when you get a taste of what they really live like, they wish some of these white people would bring them back over here. And it's a damn shame because once they get over here, they quick to hate us and bowing down to these motherfuckers like they do in their homeland. And like, what I'm saying, the white women, they choose these motherfuckers just to get the pole and go. They have nothing else to offer after that unless they're doing one of these businessmen. Anything lower than a businessman is a lower class date, and they choose like five or six of these fools, get them sick, and like I said, it's the thing of warfare with them. Just like it
mm,
is with us. They send out the sickly and the abusive ones, and they just come here, nigga. It's back to the slave days where they could pick their buck and do what they want to do, and then send them on his way. And same with the women out there.
wow.
The times ain't changed. Yeah, they just look different.
Very fascinating. So,
Yeah,
go ahead,
they
one.
had a comedy show about it called Absolutely Fabulous. And these English women would go to the club and pick up these, Caribbean guys and African guys and use them for sex and throw them back out in the street. I mean, even the Pope had a scandal in his office where they paid these guys that were on a rugby team. It was like a recorded conversation scandal in the Vatican's office, and they were paying African athletes to come over to the Vatican to have sex and then kicking them out, telling them what prices they charged and all of that. It's really crazy.
They
That's
doing that
ridiculous.
in Japan right now, Sister Wani. They need black American men, and these Nigerians is over there lying.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be black Americans. Oh my God.
Yep, they said specifically they want black American men, and then you get a Nigerian kind of, oh, I'm from America, and when that time come to go to America, she like, oh no, you lying motherfucker, and then leave his ass right there. Then the
Yeah.
police come get him and shit. Yeah, it's bad.
Sometimes the white women can't. I had a white woman to complain to me that an African man didn't live up to the. I was like, you got a counterfeit, babe. She was very drunk, and I was not part of her party. But anyway, she literally treated me like I was, customer service to complain about black men. And I said, oh, that's not a black man. That's just a random guy that you picked up. That's why we say, does African mean black?
Mm-hmm.
No, it does
It
not.
show the fuck don't. That's why I'm
Right.
so glad we delineating. Thank the Lord for Dr. Claude Anderson and the likes.
Ain't it nice? So, just to recap, why is green a part of the Pan African flag? We identified that it was from Marcus Mosiah Garvey and his oppish behavior. What I identified, according to Dr. Howard Zinn, is in 1920, when there was an outright fucking operation sent to the black community to lower us because we were riding so high with the whole Tulsa issue with Black Wall Street. Woodrow Wilson co-opted the black vote and then used our operatives such as W. E. Du Bois, my fallen brother, who betrayed us. I can say that. I apologize at his grave, but he betrayed us. He led us into a burning house. Um, Woodrow Wilson packed ops into the country of Irish descent, sent them as a vector of attack again, just like Captain James Oglethorpe towards the black community, ran my ancestors, my blood, out of Birmingham and out of Aniana to Detroit, and my grandmama and them to Chicago, right? And during the same time of the Roaring Twenties, what I'm positing, this is my hypothesis. I do not think it's coincidental that the Great Migration was triggered in the 1920s. I do not think this coincidental while the Great Migration was being triggered, Black Wall Street was being bombed to the ground by fucking airplanes. I do not think while that was happening, it was coincidental that Birth of a Nation was showing in movie theaters. And I do not think it's coincidental during that same time period that Messiah Garvey was telling us this is not our homeland. We need to go back to some fucking Africa. It is my academic opinion that Messiah Garvey was on the goddamn payroll. He was a fucking op. Take green out of our flag, thank you. Cash Gaines, what's on your mind?
Cash greens.
I had green in my head.
We know.
Yeah, peace, y'all.
What's up,
I
brother?
actually just wanted to mention one anecdotal point to Japanese and delineation. Um, in 2012, around ish, there was a big conversation within the dance community because a lot of people were getting hired by Japanese schools. Because, in my understanding, it became a part of the curriculum for you to graduate from like their high school in Japan, that you had to take a dance class. And a lot of the schools wanted to have, the premier hip hop dancers, since it was the kind of the newest, most fly style out. But a lot of the people who were sitting around me wasn't American, and they was arguing over how they was going to audition to get that role. And it just made me sit back and think about the need for delineation even more. And that was back in 2012. So it's happening in the dance world as well. There are Black American art forms where people will say that they're, Americanized, or will dress that way and get booked to teach our culture and dances and music genres in Japan and worldwide. But I'm disillusioned to it now, thanks to conversations like this.
Hey, housing. What's up?
Hello, everyone. Professor Wani.
Hey.
Capone, what's going on?
How you doing, my brother?
I want to touch on the railroads when you was mentioning about the railroads and the Irish and this, that, and the third. So what I did, I fed a question to Meta, and I said, who was the main group who built the railroads? First thing they did, they jumped out Chinese immigrants in particular. They played a crucial role in building the transcontinental railroad, which was completed in 1869. They work in trenches, blah, 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 blah. Boom. So we go back here. Hold on. All right, here we go. They said the main group who built the railroads was Chinese immigrants, along with Irish immigrants, African Americans, and Native.
Hold on.
No, just follow
Where?
me for 1 minute. Just follow me for 1 minute, Ronnie. Native Americans. All right, so we went down the line. So after Meta completed, this the question. The next question. Actually, that's not true because Chinese and Irish was only able to build just 700. And then Meta, this was Meta says, you are correct. African Americans played a significant role in building the railroads in the United States, and their contributions are overlooked, often overlooked. And they also said, on the other hand, Chinese immigrants worked primarily on the Central Pacific Railroad, which was part of the Transcontinental Railroad project. They built around 690 miles of railroad.
But they didn't
They
do it alone. But
No, they
what
didn't. But I just
question did
wanted to
you
say it.
ask it?
But the reason why I mentioned this guy, I made Meta correct it.
Right. But what question did you ask? That's the part I missed.
Oh, the question I asked, let me tell you, let me see. Who was the main group who built the railroads in America?
And they
The,
mentioned Chinese people first.
this is what they did. The main group who built the railroads of America was Chinese immigrants, along with Irish immigrants and Afro Americans and Native Americans. So we get down here. Despite these challenges, Chinese immigrants played a vital role in shaping American railroad history. That's a lie. So I hit him with the next question. Actually, that's not true because the Chinese and the Irish were only able to build just 700 miles, while Black America was able to build thousands of miles of railroad. This is the response I got
3,600.
from Meta after that. You are correct that African Americans played a significant role in building the railroads in the United States, and their contributions are often overlooked. So I asked him again, I said, so why you did not give me the correct answer? Guess what he said? This is Meta.
Hmm.
Bias training data.
Yeah, because how could Chinese people
Wow.
on the West Coast have built the railroads, which were primarily on the East Coast? We hadn't even gone. It was still wild.
Yes,
So how
yes.
could they be the primary builders of something?
But here we go. I mean, as I say, Wani, bias training. This is the information I got after I hit him with the other question. Limited knowledge, misinformation, lack of content. Yeah, in a nutshell. So I made him correct it.
And that 700 miles that they claim was not even all Chinese people. That's the other part I uncovered.
Right. And they
It was
mainly
just
was
a
on the West
mishmash.
Coast.
Yeah, it
And
was on
they
the West
on
Coast,
the
but
West Coast, yes. Yes,
that's
exactly,
where they
Wani.
live, on the West Coast.
Yes.
Um, yeah, they were not even the full crew of that.
Right.
That was them with other immigrants. So they didn't do anything.
But basically, Wani, if you don't know, you know, they're gonna lie to you. Bottom line. If you go for that lie. But I knew it was a lie off the muscle. And I close with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, do you know his wife is Chinese though, right?
Whose wife?
Mark Zucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got a
His
little.
wife is Chinese, so the bias probably comes from her input in the data. I'm just saying, you never know. These people's crazy.
Yes, they
Most of them,
are.
listen, let me tell you something. We are the only group that study history, world history, black Americans, that study it extensively. Like the average Joe don't really study. They only go by what you learn in school. Christopher Columbus discovered America. They talk about the BS that we don't even discuss. The bullshit. Hi, Professor, I didn't get my book yet.
Professor.
Oh, I'm talking through a mute. Yeah, I sent it.
Yeah.
So just keep your eye on it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna DM you my phone number,
Right.
and I'm gonna DM you my phone number and call me.
Yeah, I'll give you a call.
Yeah, give me a call after.
I just hope, Capone told me you was in the club the other night. We just want to make
Oh
sure,
Oh,
Lord, bro, I'm not worried about
I
it.
thought he
That's
was
a
at the Dice
joke.
game.
That's a joke, Professor. That's a
Nah,
joke.
got a
Hey,
full head in a bow tie.
real talk. If it gets lost in the sauce, I'll send you another.
Nah,
I'll send you
nah.
another one. No problem.
I know you
Hey,
will, man.
Professor.
You got to have a sense of humor in the world today.
Yeah, my clubbing days are over with. Um,
Professor, I know you big on having the physical book as well, right?
yes,
Because I know you
sir.
still are taking photos from books you found in the attic from your earlier family.
Well, yeah, I served as aerospace education officer for about 4 years, and I just saw how easy it is. I mean, y'all know better than I do how algorithms can counterfeit things. And when I was at a college in Memphis, Tennessee, I made really good friends with the librarian. Like I consider her one of my personal friends, and she was letting me, man, if y'all want to know some shit, make friends with a librarian. Librarians are the most powerful people on the fucking planet. She told me how it was, and this is 2 years ago. She told me it was an initiative all across the United States in colleges and universities to take their whole collection of books, both reference and otherwise, and digitize it. And I was like, holy shit. I recognized right away the danger of that. You could have a computer. Y'all ever heard of deep fake? Like a deep fake? Um, you could have deep fake software to mimic the book and change the words around and say whatever you want. We need hard copies of books. We need the originals. You know, we don't need a computer playing around with historical narratives. That's one of the reasons why why I wrote my book. Is because what's happening with history education is the narrative is being switched around with foundational Black Americans to where in some books in places like Texas, there's the books are suggesting that slavery was optional, and some fucking books are suggesting or stating that the transit that Black American slavery was basically is portraying us as indentured servants, which is not the fucking truth. My big mama was not an indentured servant. She was chattel. She was no different than a chair. You know, the Baron that had babies with her um, made a whole generation of mixed race children. They had no choice. We had no choice. So, you know, I had to fight that narrative with the books, but we need hard copies. Yes, we do not need to rely upon digitized information. And last but not least, I heard our brother Housing say something about AI. Wani and I have caught AI, and well, Wani was the first person to tell me that AI be lying, and I used AI with my students about 2 weeks ago. I asked AI, um, I was asking an innocent question about the Georgia corporation. I think it was Chat GPT. And I said, and so I was on my board in my lecture hall, my room, and I typed in the Georgia Corporation before I could finish it in front of all my students in big bold words. ChatGPT said the Georgia Corporation was not created as a colony for debtors, which is a goddamn lie. That's exactly what the Georgia Corporation was created for. It was created for a colony of debtors out of English who were used out of England who were used and criminals who were used as a buffer class against us. And I wondered, was it trying to tell me that to
No, you have to challenge it. And just like housing did, I experienced it. I use Chat GPT all day long. I have three of them that I use. And it will sometimes give you the wrong information, and you do have to push back. Usually, I ask it things that I already know the answer to, but I just want more information. But what he experienced is exactly what you can experience, and I do all the time, where it will say something like, let me try you. Let me see if you go for this. And then when you call it out, it can't go against facts. That's impossible that Chinese people built all the railroads. They weren't even in those locations. Why on earth would Black Americans be enslaved by railroad companies just for Chinese people to build them? That doesn't make any sense. We know it's stupid. We know that it's biased. And we know that Chinese people have been lying and trying to use that one thing that they didn't even do to put a footprint in America and say we're part of America. But they're not. They're not part of America at all. They could take their, egg rolls and be on the road and no one would notice. We can see that these cultures that being deported, what we can see is they've been laid bare. They're hanging out there on their own right now, aren't they? They don't have any legendary civil rights leaders. They don't have any powerful people to defend them because that's us. That was Frederick Douglass. That was Martin Luther King. Those were their civil rights heroes that they tried to play off and ignore and run around talking about. We Mexicans belong to the Caucasian race and therefore are not interested in civil rights.
preach?
In fact, the mere thought of civil rights gets on our nerves. It's the same thing the Asians said. Until COVID came around and they started getting slapped upside the head, all of these people are in a disarray. They don't have anyone to advocate for them because we're the advocates. There's no powerful Caribbean leader that's going to step up and say anything. There's no powerful African leader. They've been running for these offices and hiding behind our identities. So they can't come out of the woodwork and do anything. And even if they did come out of the woodwork, they're just counterfeit. Nobody cares what they're talking about. They're going to be run out of town on a rail. People are going to say, "You go with them." You worried about Haitians and you're being deported? You go with them. So they can't say anything. We're the only ones who can say anything about anything, and they're finding that out the hard way, aren't they? They don't know what to do. They're on TikTok cussing us out with one tongue and begging with the other tongue. I've never seen anything like it. Gang members threatening us, and at the same time talking about, well, we marched with uh, Martin Luther King. Where? Show me. The only thing I've seen with Hispanics and us is that we help them with their union issues. We help them to advocate for themselves. They created some Brown Panther movement. But everything that we've done to help them, it doesn't it doesn't seem to stick. It doesn't have the same kick. It never really pans out. They just run and hide behind us and say, "How come you're not helping us?" Israelis and Arabs. Why were we questioned by these strange people that have nothing to do with us other than being trying to be racist to us in our country, being ethnic bigots, but wanting to be white racists? These two people wanted us to weigh in on who's right in this and who's wrong. Why? Why do you want our us to weigh in? Because we're the only humanitarians on the planet. We give more charity than anyone on the planet. Why? Because America gives more charity than anyone on the planet. And Black Americans give 25% more than the average American does. So we Black Americans are the most humanitarian minded people on the planet. We've done it with money, we've done it with concerts, we've done it with physically flying over to places with Tuskegee Airmen, we've done it with protests over apartheid. We've done it in every conceivable way. In fact, we're helping people right now that we may not even want to help. And that's because they have taken over the legacy organizations and they make all kinds of African trade deals. They talk about Caribbean disasters. They help
Preach.
the Nigerians with their SARS police problem in Boko Haram. We have to discuss institutionalized domestic violence, which is in these other cultures, honor killings, forced child marriages, female genital mutilation. We have to talk about terrorism from religious organizations. We have to talk about starvation and genocide. And those things have nothing to do with Black Americans. They're talking about things in these other people's countries. That's what Ilhan Omar is standing up there doing for her people. These people have nothing to do with us, and they've sucked up all the air in the room, and now they're wondering why people want them to go out of town on a rail.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Go
Professor.
ahead.
I just asked a quick question, which was just why you preferred physical books over digital. But the reason I was asking is because housing would had a book right now feels digital, obviously, and you can't burn a digital book. But I've been trying to. I keep mentioning to you that I've been trying to make a because everybody keeps asking me to write down. I take a lot of notes, at least when we're having conversations for reparations, and I try to keep it to the cash figures. And and organizing it, I was trying to make like a top 10 of 2025 or something like that. And I was even asking you the question earlier if there's any rules when writing books, like can I have a chapter 5 million, a chapter 25,000? Because I really wanted these numbers to sear into our minds. And if it's digital, I can constantly update it. Versus, once it's the hard copy, it's the hard copy. But that's just the reason I was asking. I appreciate you for allowing me to think out loud.
No, 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 no. Cash gains, that makes perfect sense, but I'm just telling you, I would have thought the same way, but from I'm trying to think of a way to say this. Um from my being proximal to the total force community, doing work here and there, working close with people who work with the NSA and Space Force and the Air Force, and seeing some of the capabilities of what can be done with electronic media. It can be manipulated very easily. You know what I'm saying? We need stuff written in stone. You know what I'm saying? So our ancestors wrote stuff in stone, really. You know what I'm saying? Because if you manipulate history, you manipulate that narrative, you can change the minds of children and you can have them forgetting what happened. And once you forget what happened, guess what you're bound to do? Repeat it.
Hey,
You know?
Professor, how big is them manuals? Like 4,000 page slam down? Like go to page 322.
Yeah. Pretty big, my friend.
And have you seen or read the book or heard the story about Fahrenheit 451?
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a right one. It's a and one. I was saying you could change your profile pic every day for every week and still have a new country you've been to, huh? That's crazy. Hey, but Professor, yeah, the Fahrenheit 451 is supposed to be a story. I think it's from the 1960s, where it's a future where we've been taught an alternate history where firefighters are meant to burn books instead of to
Wow.
put out fires. And even when people try to look on their online media, like they hear an altered story, and so the whole movie becomes like, books are a crime. Like having a book is a crime. So there's some people who memorize books in order to keep
Oh,
them alive.
Brother Cash,
I'm
you
giving
gotta
too much
watch
away.
Equilibrium because they do that in
Oh
that
yeah, I love
movie.
equilibrium. Yeah.
Nobody can read about the past or visit the past. They do that shit. That's what they trying to do now, brother. You sparked that in my head when you said that.
Yeah, I love equilibrium, bro, with the gun katas. The
Yeah,
fighting with it and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
Hey, I, I
yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the what?
To the
Republic.
Republic, and that's the past. In that
Republic.
movie,
Not
Professor, in that movie in the past, if you would have said some shit like that, you would have got shot.
Republic. Well, America is a republic just like Rome. We're about to come to Rob the Whip. I ain't forgot about you, Rob. We're coming to you next. But America is a republic just like Rome. So let me tell you how important history is, something y'all didn't know that I accidentally found out. In Rome, y'all heard of the word liberal. Liberal comes from the Latin word liber, Liber. Liber was freedom. So in Rome, you could be a black man, a gladiator, and you could have anything you wanted. You could have a white woman, you could have gold, you could have a mansion, you could have a whatever your heart's desire. You could have whatever you want. But if they caught you with liber, they would kill you immediately on the spot. Y'all want to know what liber was? Liber
A
was
book?
a book. Yes, that's
What?
how.
They
Go ahead.
they only wanted the the priest class to have the books or something?
Yes. Why then?
So
Really?
they could write the narrative on the future.
And certain things were hidden in the books. The library of what was called the Library of Alexandria had books on absolute control of God knows what was written in the Library of Alexandria. But I'm just saying the Romans realized the power of reading and made it such a consequence that if they caught you with a goddamn book and you weren't, like Wani said, priest class, priest meant scientist. It's taken out of context. Back then it meant scientist. If you were outside the priest class and you're reading, they would kill you on the spot, even if you're a billionaire. Right away, kill them.
And Professor, I'm sorry, one last thing.
Go ahead.
In the movie Fahrenheit 451, among the people that they capture who have books and stuff, they meet a lady who has an entire library, and they pile all her books in the center of the room, and she doesn't even look up like to get arrested. Like she keeps reading till the moment she gets arrested. And when they finally set the books on fire, she steps into the fire with her books straight up.
Wow. Go ahead, Rob.
First of all, I want to say what's happening, everybody, man. And Professor Imani, I just want to say, man, I appreciate you guys because I learn so much every time I come in here. You guys, I appreciate everything you're doing in this space that you created to teach. I'm gonna go a little bit offline if it's all right. I just want to, cause some stuff I heard some stuff online today, and it bothered me. It like really bothered me, and it bothered me to the point that I think we're kind of missing our mark as a as a people. I'm a planner. One of my jobs that I did, I'm a planner. I'm a strike planner, meaning I plan strike missions. So I apply that same teaching that I learned to my way of life when I'm doing stuff. Um, the reparations, where we're going about reparations, I think I'm not saying we're doing it wrong, but we can do it a lot better and get more work out of it. As far as reparations, if you look at what the Native Americans did, they took their grievances to the UN. They put the UN and they got a list of grievances of the tribes that went forward, went to the UN basically to put the US on blast and stated their grievances to the world on the world stage. And then they went to the American courts and they went and got what they got. And I got I have the actual numbers of how much money they got. But if I switch up from Twitter to my phone, then this will go away. The space will close. So, but I can put those numbers up. But that's how they got their reparations, and they're still getting stuff. We
When
need to
did
go.
they do you know when they did that?
Um,
What?
It's
Year
a time.
that
I can ask my wife to look. When did they go to the UN, babe?
just a time frame
She's looking right now on her phone.
thing.
But that's
Because
what they
we're
did.
we're always told that we need to have another country presented for us.
No,
You know what
no.
I'm saying?
They went to it was they had two representatives. They went up. They had their flag and everything like we have, and they identified themselves by their tribes, and they went to the UN and they stated their grievances, and basically shamed the U.S. They put the U.S. on blast like this is what they did to us, and we deserve our reparations. And then once they did that, they went to the court system, American court system, and they filed their grievances in court, and that's how they got it.
Now, here's something interesting. Not only was I told that the United States controls the UN, so if they don't want to do something, they're not going to go against the United States. And I was also told that you need a UN seat to make these requests. However, the UN has already said that we deserve reparations.
Right.
So that's not even the argument anymore. So what's the holdup?
So the thing is, if but we have yet to do that. If we because the United States were involved in negotiations with Israel and the Germans. That's how the Israelis got their reparations from Germany. And the United States was the go between with that. So if we go that route, they went in 1977. One significant event was in 1977 when indigenous leaders from the Americas attended the International NGO Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Population in the Americas at the UN in Geneva, Switzerland. During this conference, they demanded recognition of indigenous sovereignty, reparations for the historical injustices, and the return of stolen lands. So that's how they got their land. It goes on and on, but it was in 1977 they went. We need to go the same route they did. Their blueprint is already there. We don't have to recreate the wheel, but I think we'll have a better chance if we go that route and then go through the court systems. We just need two well-spoken people that understands our history, that can speak well and state the grievances, and then we can go forward with our court cases. That's all I got to say. I land my plane.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
very interesting.
I was reading something. This is just one of the conversations about slavery reparations. UN rights chief urges states to act on slavery reparations, April 19th, 2024. Um, yeah, they already know they owe reparations to us. Not sure what else we need to do. Everyone already agrees.
We need to
Field
go to
Order 15.
we need to go to the UN and just do it physically. Have our representatives represent us. Two well-spoken people that know our history, and we got to physically state it. Just like we go to court here, we need to go with it. Get a seat at the UN and state our grievances there.
Facts, facts. Hey, brother Rob, you dead on point, brother. I'm so glad you said that. That was a word from God, brother. I'm gonna just keep it 100 because they attack on all fronts, just like we need to do. We can't just keep a spearhead in one direction. What that brother was saying is something we need to look into for real.
Hey, Rob, could you
God bless you, brother
Now,
Rob.
Robert, can you say it one more time? I missed it.
I'm saying we need to physically have representatives, two well-spoken representatives that understand our history, that can speak for us to physically go to the UN and state our grievances that they already know, like Wani just said. But we need to physically go like the Native Americans sent their representatives.
mhm.
Since they already know they owe us, we just got to go get it. We have to physically go get it and then go through our own court systems here in America and state our grievances. And I think we'll have a better chance and we'll probably get it with God's will. We'll get it.
Now here's another time when the UN Human Rights Chief spoke about UN rights chief says reparations are needed for people facing racism. This was after the George Floyd event, and they did a whole report saying that we're victims of racism and should. That was 2021. So they continue to have these discussions. September 19th, 2016. This says the UN panel says U.S. owes reparations to African Americans. All you have to do is look up UN says Black Americans deserve reparations. We'll pull up a bunch of articles of people speaking about this. They know that they would never say anything like this if it wasn't absolutely owed. We never got repaired. Everyone else did. People with vaccine injuries got repaired. Every kind of Indian tribe got repaired. Japanese people who bombed the crap out of us got repaired. And then they got a whole city built with the Marshall Plan. They got double repairs, maybe more. Everybody who had a grievance got repaired. The problem with us is there is a deep seated fear. It's been there since slavery. They have a hatred that they have to keep up this hateful energy because they know that they're wrong. They can't let that energy of hating us down, and they don't want to repair. So we're just going to have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. We've been taking little bites out of them over and over and over again, and they're going to get worn down. I mean, they look crazy right now. Everybody around them is telling them what's going on. And like I said, they basically broke a treaty because they agreed to pay Field Order 15. So there's no excuse for their behavior. They need to cough it up. Not saying that the Native Americans didn't get broken treaties, because they did, but you just have to keep fighting through it. Now, they go through the Indian Bureau of Affairs, and of course, they don't let us be a part of it. This is something that I've noticed with Black Americans. Everybody conveniently says no. You can't be in the African Union, you can't be in CARICOM, you have to be this and that, and yet they make all these allowances for other people. And with Africans, they say, oh, you can't be in the African Union because you're not an African country. Well, then why do you have Palestinians in there and Israelis in there? Like, why do you have you have people that are not even of African descent in there monitoring and observing? Same thing with the Caribbean, CARICOM. You can't be a part of it. You're not Caribbean. But you have South Americans in there. Same thing in South American. Oh, the Afro Latinos say we're all the same. Oh, but you have a South American organizations for people that are indigenous, but you got Caribbeans a part of it, but you said we couldn't be a part of it because we're not a country. They make allowances when they want to, and they say you can't be a part of it to us. Same thing with Native Americans. We should belong to the Indian Bureau of Affairs. Why? The Lumbee people are no different than Black Americans. They're in the Indian Bureau of Affairs, and they've just been federally recognized. There's no difference between us and the Lumbee. We're a triracial group, they're a triracial group. They have more European admixture, and they have less uh, black DNA. We have more. We have less European, but it's still triracial. How are they Indian when they look like a bunch of light skinned black people? So there we go. We have them on the science. We have them on the morals. We have them every which way. So we'll just keep going forward. We'll just keep biting on and on.
Hey, Wani, I got and everybody, I got went there's a quick search. What my wife did, how to file a complaint and petitions to the UN. Um, it's a step by step process. So if we get our heads together and choose who we want, I think it should be the professor and Nasheed. So shit,
I second that motion.
you know what I'm saying? We go get
Let's
y'all to
do
get up
it.
there. It's a step by step. She just went to Chat GPT, but how to file complaints and petitions to the UN and the steps that you need to take in order to do it, and you get a seat at the UN
Wow.
I see
on
brother
the
Art
world
in the
stage.
ranks. Let's get brother Art up there too. Brother
Yeah.
Art.
Rob the whip. Put.
Brother who? Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Uh
Brother who?
Art Watkins, Sister Wani.
No.
oh.
Never mind, brother Art.
Go, Rob,
Which one?
put that in my
Oh,
DM.
that part.
Yeah.
Yes. Arthur.
Yeah.
Please do not say art.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
my
yeah.
you thought you was talking about the weirdo dude. No, 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 no.
Ah, I was like, wait a minute. He doesn't even believe
No,
real
hey,
lineage.
I'm sorry. I know exactly
Yeah.
what you meant. You said, hold
Yeah.
on, motherfucker. Wait a minute.
Hey,
We
hey,
No,
thought he was
because that's
talking
what.
about art.
Wani, I have a question.
Yes.
This USA that's been shut down,
Yes.
you notice that everybody's going crazy right now. All the foreigners and everybody going crazy.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Because
I,
they're being funded by that. That's who's paying for them to come to this country with $2 and make good.
And
Right.
they say that we worked hard for them. No, you didn't work
And then,
nothing
brother,
for
Hey,
they
them.
give
we
us they
worked
give us the
hard.
bootstrap story.
Um,
But what about the representative, the what is she's Samanian, the one up there in
Ilhan
Ilhan
Minnesota?
Omar.
Omar.
Oh yeah,
Ugh.
she need to
Oh,
go to jail.
Yo, listen, she got
In Somalia.
people, immigrants that she hiding out, and she's telling them how to get in here legitly.
These
wow.
And
people
she's
need to
using
go to
and listen,
jail.
and she using the funds from her
She's mad because they took her
yeah.
money.
Well,
Yeah.
my question is that treason?
Yes, it is.
Oh yeah,
Well, it's not
yeah,
treason,
treason for
Professor. It's
sure.
not
At the
treason.
least, at the
It's
least,
not treason. They were labeled as mail fraud.
Wow.
it's still treasonous against the country. That bitch need to go to jail or like take it
Yes,
back
it
to
is.
retro trial, firing squad.
Okay.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I we try to get new speakers on. I've never seen
Carry on.
I've never seen Barbara before. I'm gonna give her a chance to speak. Rob the Whip, send that information to my DM, man. That was real interesting stuff.
I
Yes.
got
sent it
some
to you,
notes on the
bro.
UN before we leave that
Bless you,
It's
brother
conversation.
already
Rob.
there.
I got notes
It's,
on the UN before we leave that conversation.
Okay, well,
hey, it's already there, Professor. I already sent it to you.
ca-
And real quick, because I'm about to fall asleep. I'm tired.
okay,
Oh.
Um, um, as far as that U.S. aid, y'all, check this out. It's bigger than that. That U.S. aid was a front for the CIA.
wow,
Yeah, they were giving out, handling out money and stuff, but they were running their own black operations out of there. And that's why they locked themselves in. They've been trying to cut themselves free. What Trump did is expose a lot of money. They had over $1 billion in that fund where they were just running their own operations all over the world without anybody,
Mm.
without any overhead or oversight. So it's a lot of people about to go to jail for a lot of stuff, bro.
craziness.
Joe Biden
Wow.
gave one more thing. Joe Biden gave 300 million to BBC just to have anti-talk against Trump and that other guy,
What?
Eli. Yeah, it's posted on. It's up there on Twitter.
Nothing but scandals with
Actually, it's on
people like
Fox
this.
Scam,
News.
scam, scam. All right, we're gonna go ahead. Oh Lord, where'd she go?
Barbara,
Yeah.
hold on. I don't see her now.
Oh Lord. Barbara, if you hear me, come on back. I wanted to hear what you had to say. I'm always interested in new perspectives. Until Barbara comes back, Cash, you had something to add?
Yeah, if we can go back to the UN conversation real quick, or UN solution, or UN strategy.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely believe we should control as many parts of the argument as possible. But I don't think that the 2 points that were made earlier can be forgotten or overlooked. That America really controls the United Nations, and really they don't ever enforce laws against European nations, but against African ones. Let me come back to that. The Bureau of Indian Affairs owes Black Americans reparations, in my understanding, and that's from Dr. Claude Anderson, saying that they're getting money every year that they're supposed to allocate to people who were formerly enslaved under their tribes, and they set that money aside like we never had no slavery. I've met Pan Africanists out here in New York City who had video footage, it was on VHS tape, from when they went to United Nations in 2001. So it sounds like this is a reoccurring argument that we should go to the UN to hold America accountable. And I'm not one for beating my head against the wall, trying the same thing over and over again. However, the more media attention we have on our issue, the better. And there's 194 countries or something in the UN. Um, Britain, the country of Britain, has paid cash reparations before to the continent, to the Mau Mau tribe, not to all Kenyans, but specifically to the tribe that was affected by the Mau Mau massacre in the 1950s. And so to me, there's a precedent that's been set that a country can pay a tribe of people within a country. They didn't go to the Kenyan government, to be clear. We as Black Americans fought for the end of apartheid in South Africa, and they just turned around and held Israel accountable for what it's doing to Palestinians, while we still got George Floyd, while we still got Sonia Massey, we still got Cancer Alley. So they turned around and held another country accountable, but not the one that's affecting us. So I feel like I definitely agree with Rob. We got to hold our own. And the last thing I wanted to say is that the Catholic Church worldwide has agreed to $100 million that they've pledged to pay reparations. And I feel like there's no one Black American speaking on our behalf at the international stage on how much is owed to us. It's all going to be the continent since they're the main Catholics, or even Latinos who are the main Catholic people of modern day.
Wow.
But that money's owed to us as Black Americans, I argue, and we need to have a representative in the same way we're going to have a representative speaking at the UN. So I just wanted to drop that in the conversation. Thank you.
All right. I saw was it Canada? I saw just came up. Somebody we had a new speaker.
Yes.
You see it? Wani, this
Oh no, it left
that's
too.
so weird. They're like dropping. It's so strange.
Hold on. Strange.
Hey, professor,
Yes, sir.
I'm not an imperialist, but I have had the thought experiment that we as Black Americans might be able to weaponize America or even the United Nations to hold the African tribes accountable that benefited from the slave trade, in order to get our reparations from them. Not to, you know what I'm saying, weaponize white folks to our gain, but that seems more realistic to me. That because the United Nations has always mentioned how they're only existing to hold African leaders and nations accountable. So they told that to the South Africans when they tried to hold Israel accountable. Like this UN body exists to say that Black people do shit wrong or African people do shit wrong. So maybe, not to be an imperialist, but you know what I'm saying, if we want our check from Africa and they ain't saying they're gonna pay up, we might have to have a wraparound through the UN.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, and this is my point. These African countries, the same guys that keep saying, "Hey, we need to get together. We don't be divisive. We're one. We're all the." They have UN seats, and not one of them has cracked their mouth open to advocate for us. But they sure are advocating for Palestinians. They know how to use the seat when they want to, don't they?
Right.
They never said a peep, and these people owe us. Ethiopia and South Africa owes us, but they would never do it. They won't even admit that they got any benefit from our existence. So that's what they're doing, and we see that they have the power to do it, but they didn't say anything. The UN chiefs said it on their own. They didn't wait for a UN seat or a particular country to say it. They've already admitted that we deserve reparations on their own. So,
And Wally, that's who we're appealing to when we go there to argue that we're owed reparations, right?
mhm.
So they're gatekeepers, not just with melanin, but ones who might be held accountable as well. So it's kind of biased for them to even speak on our claim.
Yes. Now, I don't know if I know the Tinnaboos are involved in the slave trade and others are still in existence. Some of them are not in existence, but I was my idea that um, they should pay from their countries. And the reason why I feel that these African countries should pay from their countries is because they have tried to get reparations from their countries. And they could try to play ghost and say, oh, well, those countries didn't exist. You can't sue Nigeria. Well, then why is Nigeria trying to sue to get money for their people being, in quotation marks, kidnapped by white people, which we know is a joke? Kidnapped by white people. They tried to get reparations based on that. So if you've already acknowledged that you're a country that you feel deserves reparations, when in fact you're just bad business people. I can't say bad businessmen because it was a lot of women doing it. Bad business people that now want reparations because you got left out in the cold, and you look crazy.
It's like they're not learning even from the slave trade. The Nigerians,
Yes.
they have the damn doctrine of unequal exchange. Before I go into doctrine of unequal exchange, I want to let Coach. I saw Coach down there. Coach, if you can hear me, please send me check your DM. I put my phone number in there if you want to text it to me, but send me your address. I'm trying to send your book and you didn't have an address, full address and zip code, and also housing. I put my text, my phone number in
I got it,
got it,
Professor.
got it, got it. That's all. But let's talk about the doctrine of unequal exchange. What Wani was talking about was the West Africans have a long history. Number one, let's get some straightening. Let's go ahead and get some fucking straightening right quick. Let's get this shit real good and straight. West African tribal chiefs are the reason why the system of white supremacy is alive and well. I say that shit in the court of law. I said that shit in Spain. I said it. Reason being is tribal chiefs s- uh, in an effort to show off to a group of people didn't understand they sold enslaved Africans to Europeans. um as historical canon has it, the group of Europeans were killing each other as quiet as it's kept. The French were fighting the English were fighting the Spanish. They were just doing what they do best, murder each other. And they start running out of money to murder each other. So rumor has it was an African king named Prester John, who was Christian and who would help any Christian nation. So the Europeans went to Africa looking for Prester John. Prester John had been dead over 100 years, but they didn't have the internet. Nobody knew it, and they found this joker, this tribal king, pretending to be Prester John, that who, in an effort to show off to a group of people he didn't understand, donated a group of enslaved Africans to these Europeans, who in turn took them back to Europe and showed them off to Pope Innocent. I think Pope Innocent II. I think the year is 1402, but y'all can fact check me on that. Pope Innocent II said this is a brilliant idea. This being burnt skin, melanated skin, because the Europeans had enslaved each other for 1,000 years. But they had a problem. Europeans would escape slavery. They looked alike. They would grow a beard, cut their hair, grow hair, whatever, and then pretend like they were somebody else and escape the slave trade. Well, Pope Innocent II had these the chocolate people in front of him, and he said, "Wow, what a wonderful idea! They can't hide." So he doomed to servitude ad infinitum all people of African descent. Way to go, dumbass African chief. Dr. Claude Anderson calls it the doctrine of equal exchange. According to Dr. Claude Anderson, um, hell, I don't even know where to begin. Let's start from the top. Dr. Claude Anderson said, while Africa's human capital was being displaced through slavery, so too were its natural and mineral wealth. Arab, Moor, Spanish, and Portuguese merchants now traded low value, fabricated items such as, you ready for this, Wani? Pig iron, brass rings, religious artifacts, household gadgets, and used firearms for Africa's highly valued commodities such as gold, silver, quality leather, long cotton, art objects, black slaves, and ivory. Dr. Anderson just throws black slaves in there. European manufacturers manufacture items were primarily for decorative purposes or tribal warfare. African commodities, on the other hand, were intentionally used to undergird major economies and currencies. This imbalance, described by Thomas Sowell, a black economist, as doctrine of unequal exchange, allowed for natural and mineral wealth to be transferred from Africa in a steady flow. They dumb, ignorant, stupid, watch these words, asinine asses made the Europe rich by trying to show off. So why did they do it? Well, Dr. Claude Anderson says the self-destructive attitudes of the tribal chiefs have not yet to be fully explained or understood, but historian Norman Combs offered one explanation as to why the chiefs willingly traded their valuable resources to European and Arab traders. According to Combs, African tribal chiefs willingly participated in such a questionable trade practices because West African economies were subsistence based, and therefore people were satisfied with the status quo and saw no need to accumulate wealth and power. These dumbass motherfuckers. What that meant in normal people language is Africa was kind of balling back then. So when these starving Europeans came to Africa, they sold my ancestors, my dad on my dad's side. They said, "Oh, here you go. You can have this," just to show how bad they were. But guess what they did? They invited a parasite onto their land, and the European thirst for blood, for resources, and for people did not stop. And that's what the fuck they get. Ladies and gentlemen, I posit that's what the whole vitriol is about. They know that they fucked up, and they see us. balling out on top, going through the fire with our chest up high, doing well as foundational Black Americans, and they're confused. Like, why is he doing so well? He's not supposed to do so well. He was supposed to die. We were supposed to sell him to die. So I say, Black Americans, stick your chest out and rub it in their goddamn face because they sold you.
And that caste system is very much cemented in their minds. So when someone is a slave caste, they can't, they just can't wrap their head around it. How we could rise out of slavery and just be heads and tails above these. Like I said, astronauts versus basket weavers. They'll never catch up. They will never catch up.
So when they come over here, like Wani said, they know they can't catch up. So what they do is join forces with the dominant society to undermine us. It's ridiculous.
And my research, I came across a treaty with Nigeria and the British, where white folks essentially convinced Nigerians to stop committing human sacrifice. And I can understand why white folks would want them to not kill people that they could enslave, but it's just a little bit backwards in my mind that white folks had to convince people on the continent to not kill their own people and bury them alive. Crazy.
Yeah, if they're killing their own people and burying them alive, they're supposed to be friends with us.
But they're still doing it, and the Congress had to address human sacrifices. So, as because these people are trying to come over here like that. You know what I'm saying?
And the caste system was up until 1970 for Nigeria, and my mom was born in 1952. I know that there were people who were considered outcast in Nigeria called the OSU. And to this day, I hear Nigerians say that they don't want to marry into that caste because those people were those who would have been enslaved like our ancestors, but they didn't get chosen by white folks. So they got left at the ports and enslaved in Africa. I'm like, come on, y'all.
That's a neighborhood in Ghana. It's called Osu, and it's a very swanky, upscale neighborhood. It's like one of their best neighborhoods, and yet and still, they still got shit flowing through the street. An open shit just flowing through the street.
My goodness.
And they have a caste system over there. I'm not gonna say they have slaves, but when you eat dinner in their household, they have subordinates from the villages that come in there that do stuff like clean, cook, and it's just subordinates. And I was wondering myself, I was like, you know what? If we move over here to Ghana, where am I gonna fit in this hierarchy? I don't know where, but I know it's not gonna be the top. So I'll just go back home to Africa shit. Marcus Garvey was talking was a bunch of fucking cap. He was an op.
We're a monkey wrench over there as well because our U.S. citizenship trumps all the other citizenships other than Swiss citizenship, probably. So that's confusing to have people that descended from chattel slavery with the most powerful citizenship. So they don't know what to do with us. They want to be um, lord something over us, but they can't because we have something that they don't have. We have a lot of things that they don't have.
I was on mute. That's called karma, is what the fuck that's called. Um, Soheem, what's on your mind?
What's up, Lonnie? What's up, Professor?
What's up, bro?
Well, I guess all I can say right this second is if you call it Marcus Garvey a fraud, then all the little closeted Pan Africanists need to lead a chat right now because they love them some Marcus Garvey. So, uh, I don't even know his history like that, his background. I know he was non-FBA, but I just know what I also know is that the Pan Africanist community, uh, that's one of their legends. That's one of their idols. That's one of the people that they kind of uplift and kind of use as an example to push forward their agendas and their ideology. So uh, yeah, I just wanted to quickly just say that you know I guess I need to do a little bit more research about what he was about about what his actual what he was trying to do. To be honest, I haven't really done a lot of research on him. I don't really know what he was trying to do. I just know he was non-FBA, and I just know that he wasn't trying to really get nothing popping for us. So that's about what I know.
Hey, Professor, you just made me think. I've been to the continent a couple of times. I never met somebody that even knew who Marcus Garvey was. I feel
Right.
like do they want mass importation that everybody come back to the continent? He was advocating for it, but I never really heard the actual
Like
effect of it.
what exact Professor? Real quick, like what exactly? Like just kind of like what's like an overview of what he was trying to accomplish? Like what was his whole goal or
And
purpose?
he
What was
was
he trying to do?
trying to be the king of Africa, get us to go back to Africa on that Black Star Line.
Right.
And
Right.
he was doing, you know, he had talks with all the big white supremacists at the time. Um, well, they called themselves white supremacists: Walter Plecker, Ernest Severe Cox, and the Ku Klux Klan. Um, they viewed themselves as, you know, people that need to be living on this continent on their own. And he was going along with the program, but he wanted to be the king of Africa. And they said that he was quite the tyrant in that organization that he was running. Uh, he made a whole lot of nasty statements. He fought with our leaders. He did not have good relationships with our Black American leaders. So he did a lot of stuff, and then he was caught doing deceptive ads to raise money for that Black Star Line, and all the ships were not seaworthy. So he was pretty much a hot mess. Now
So
he played.
what
From
was his
Jamaica.
beef? What was
Oh,
his beef? I don't think he was Jamaican. I think he was
he was
yeah,
Jamaican.
he was Jamaican.
Yeah,
What
he was
was his
born in
what was his
Jamaica.
what was his issue with Foundation Black America?
No, he didn't. He was just trying to get us to make him the king of everybody. He tried to get this idea off the ground in Jamaica. It didn't work, and he came up here and wanted to be the king up here. He's foreign, but he convinced enough people to get some kind of traction going up here. But then ultimately, he clashed with our groups. Now I'm trying to get the Earth Angel up here.
Didn't
Uh,
he say? Didn't he say all like people were really from Africa, like including the Caribbean, and we should all go back?
mm-hmm.
Like that was
Yeah.
my main. That's like the him in a sentence for me. But I know that he started a laundromat, but it failed. And I don't think he had a problem with Black Americans. He just didn't consider us as a thing. He thought that he looked at us and didn't see an American. He seen an African. And
Right.
again, like without understanding what the culture is on the continent, because he was born in Jamaica. And then when he went to jail, in my understanding, white folks came to him and they was like, "Look, you can let this go back to Africa stuff go, and we'll release you back to Jamaica." And he took that deal. So I don't know, little things like that. I'm saying, and he died in England. I don't know.
So let's review. You said that he was told to let the Back to Africa thing go. Wow, that's interesting.
So would he be considered like an agent or op?
Yes, he definitely did a lot of agent op things because he was collaborating with all the, these racist white men and groups.
Oh yeah, okay, he's definitely an agent then.
Yeah.
Imagine,
Go ahead.
Professor, imagine getting robbed and somebody telling you you should just leave. They ain't never gonna pay you back.
It's craziness, but it's all about knowing what stuff meaning. No means knowing the meaning. And all this was triggered today by me walking through the halls and seeing a big Black History Month poster being put up that had red and green in it. I was like, where's that green come from? And we don't even know. The green is homage to Ireland by a fucking op named Marcus Garvey, who was co-opted during a period of Irish immigrant warfare being uh, exhibited on America vis-a-vis Woodrow Wilson. We need to know what stuff means, you know what I'm saying? Which is why history is so important.
Professor, are you referring to the red, black, and green flag? Just so I'm clear.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Yeah,
Okay.
that green was homage to Ireland through Marcus Garvey, who worked with ops. I didn't know either. I used to be a kind of a cheerleader for Mark. I wasn't really a cheerleader for Marcus Garvey, but I would put his pictures up and stuff. I didn't understand what I was looking at. Same thing with Du Bois. I was raised up, to believe that the talented tenth was something nice when the ideology of talented tenth actually fucking destroyed the foundational black almost. We're not destroyed, but it did a lot of damage. TD Jakes and Al Sharpton of the talented tenth, it never works. You get narcissistic predators talking about I'm the anointed one to lead the group. It never works. What worked with Booker T. Washington's ideology of industrial education. Basically, everybody's a leader. We see that kind of coming back in a different form. Like Tariq Nasheed says, there are no leaders. The code is a leadership. Neely Fuller um, was a pioneer with respect to code being leadership. Interesting story about Neely Fuller. By the way, can anybody confirm his death? Is that confirmed or do we know?
Yes.
So Tariq confirmed it on his page.
Oh no. Well, Neely lived a full life, but shout out to Neely Fuller. Neely Fuller noticed that code in the Air Force. He said, seemingly the white people just know what to do. I just thought that was kind of funny because it's so true. Like it's like an unspoken rule game. A wink, wink, nod, nod. That we're catching on. We're catching on real
I
fast.
think I think we all kind of had Marcus Garvey kind of kind of propped up amongst us as far as Black history, quote unquote, which is all the more reason why I don't personally have an issue on the whole getting rid of the Department of Justice thing. I don't know. Excuse me, Department of Education. Um, I don't know where you stand on that, Professor, with you being a an educator yourself, or kind of your stance on that. I've been getting into it with a lot of people on Instagram about that because they're like, my stance is outside of someone like you, Professor, and someone like even you, Wani, and a lot of the other family who takes time to educate people about our history, about more specifically FBA history. They don't really teach our children, especially on an elementary level, middle school level, on up to high school. They don't really teach us our true history. Like I feel like they give us the history that white people kind of say, okay, y'all can tell them about Martin Luther King, y'all can tell them about Malcolm X, y'all can tell them about Rosa Parks. Like they almost have, they have to approve who they tell us about, who they educate us
Yeah,
about.
yes, that's very true. It's so true that if you look through the Drumtron, y'all will see my Cash App, Our Story Publications. If you put your name and address and add $25, I will send you a book I wrote because of this. I'll tell you the story of why I wrote the history book from 1492 to American Revolution. I wrote that because I was teaching seventh grade history in Fraser in a poor neighborhood in Memphis, and I was teaching the honor section, and one of my little girls had a straight A's. Was like, Doctor A, they were just acting up, and I said, "Be real with me. Y'all know I'm cool. Just tell me why y'all doing this to me. Why y'all acting up?" They said, I don't see myself. She said, Dr. A, I don't see myself in this book. And I looked at that book, man, I let them cut up. I was like, you're right. You're not in this book. You're cut out of history. So I addressed it with the truth. So, Brother Soheem has a really good point. And how I feel about Trump dismantling the Department of Education, it could be a good thing, actually. From a certain standpoint, if it goes a certain way, teachers, professionally licensed educators, could be able to charge the system. And I would like to see it go to where we can start. If you have a license, you can start a professional teaching license. You can start your own little school. I would want to do that, and just bill direct instead of dealing with a school system. because it's a lot of corruption dealing with these damn school systems. And so, him, a thing I don't like about these school systems is the community has no fucking control over who your principal is. The community has no control over who your teachers are. In the middle of a black neighborhood,
What?
you got teach. Go
Real,
ahead.
real quick, Professor, on that. Not to cut you
No, you
off, but I
good.
just want to speak to that specific part. That's why he's saying I'm not doing away with the Department of Education as an education collectively. He keeps saying I want to leave it to the states. I want to give
Okay.
that. I want to give the power to each individual state to run their educational institutions the way they want to run them. They can appoint who they want to appoint. So it doesn't have to be on a federal level. So I think that goes exactly to what you just said, Professor, when you say the community should choose who the principals are, the
Right.
community should choose the superintendents, the community should choose who sits on the school boards, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah, I've seen it in Memphis because Memphis is a black jurisdiction. It's one of the very few, and I'm a '80s baby. I've been around a minute now. My grandmama was a special ed teacher in Washington D.C. for 55 years before she died, and I would go to D.C. when I was a little boy in the early '90s, and D.C. used to be black, black, blackety black, but it's not anymore. My point of bringing up D.C. is the school systems in black neighborhoods generally pay more. I think this is by design, but like in the military, you getting hazard pay for dangerous assignments. Inner inner city schools generally pay more than safe we call them munis, municipal schools. So what that does is you get white teachers from these nice neighborhoods doing the commute to go to the hood to get that extra pay. So you got children in the hood like me and the school full of two things, which is a crying shame. Full of uncertified teachers that don't know what the fuck they talking about. Teaching critical subjects like mathematics, not knowing anything about math, got a degree in political science teaching algebra 1. You know what I'm saying? And even worse or equally as bad, teachers who are not from the culture up in your culture despising the fuck out of you. So yeah, I hope this changes things to where, and if y'all know somebody in that Trump administration Department of Education, DM me. I'm ready to work with them. You know what I'm
It was
saying?
a couple with accents. I was like, who hired y'all? Like,
Right,
yo, English ain't even, you know what I'm saying? Like, I call you to ask for like extra advice, and I got to listen through your whole answer machine in two different languages before English. Make it make sense.
right. But yeah, I'm ready for I would like to see the communities get more control over the school because what people don't understand, I know Brother Mark Carter said take control. It's not impossible, but it's not that easy by design across the United States. Because I've taught in Alabama, Tennessee, New York State, Washington, D.C., Georgia. I'm licensed in Louisiana. It's the same story no matter where you go. So it has to be by design that outsiders pick the school leadership. So, for instance, in Memphis, one year in the middle of Fraser, very low SES black neighborhood, there was a principal selected he was a white male who had let's just say a different type of lifestyle put in the heart of the ghetto. I'm like, why? He doesn't even match the school culture. And he brings his agenda with him, his teachers with him. And it just looked to me, it looked like he was trying to change the traditional values of these black American children. You see what I'm saying? It's all kind of, you're dealing with all kind of agendas with this shit. I think at the bare minimum, every community, if I ever went in politics, I would make it my fucking mission to make sure that every community, every black community has control over its police officers. Your police officers should look like you and should have your type of yeah, and also your teachers and administrators.
But Professor, real quick on the police officer thing, I do want to say this from personal experience, and I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with others. I don't disagree, but that's a double edged sword. I have experienced white police officers being a million times more cordial than black police officers, a million times more. And I'm from the South, just like you. So I've experienced that. I've had white officers walk up. How you doing, sir? Reason I
Well,
pulled you over.
we're gonna move on to Rock 8410, but that's not really. I'm not talking about racial. I'm not really talking about race so much as I'm talking about uh culture. So
Control the laws.
I think
Got
you
you.
should have somebody from the same neighborhood. So I don't care
Got
if it
you.
could be a white cop, but he needs to
Got
be
you.
from that neighborhood.
Got you.
Go ahead on Rock 8410.
All right, peace to the room, peace to the family. It's a masterful broadcast as always. I just learned so much from you guys, you, Professor, and Wani. I've been kind of hearing it intermittently because I'm out driving this rig and I'm kind of all up in the mountains of Georgia. But I want to keep this as constructive as possible. Also, it's like honoring Brother Neely Fuller. So someone called, and excuse me if I got any of this wrong, but someone spoke about like several people from what I can hear about going and pleading a case to the UN. Um, from what I understand, the UN is, and I may be wrong, uh, governed to some degree by the United States. Or
Yes.
okay, so with that being the case, then it's pretty clear that the UN knows about the injustice of FBAs, and
Yes,
it would kind of be
they've written a lot of articles about it and said that we should get reparations. So yes.
right. And then also on that same point, I was kind of thinking, and again, this is only trying to be constructive, but if you introduce a point or a possible solution and you're adamant about it to the point that um, you disagree with its execution or even its possible validity, it sounds like that you should be the person who advocates for the point that you brought up. I mean, if we go back to like everyone being on code and the code being the leader, I think I'm not trying to criticize. I just think it may be disingenuous to be like, someone should be doing something. Like, I mean, you are the person that should be doing something. And I'll land with this and I'll keep this really brief. In my family, I'm the quote unquote black guy. I'm the guy that's talking that black stuff. Okay, cool, got it. When they ask me, what are you doing? Because you listen to all this stuff and you da 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 da. I worked at a Fortune 500 company and I was a supervisor. I was directly and indirectly responsible for hiring 11 people and helping a lot of those people get raises because I explained what they needed to do and how they should do it. So when they ask that question, I'm like, black empowerment and revolution is not going out into the streets with an AK. That's not what black empowerment and revolution is. It's about empowering people because financially you need the empowerment, and then maybe mentally I can help sway you after that. Just like the Panthers, if you can feed people, you can lead people. So I said that really just to say, you have to be the person that puts your ideas into movement. And I'm not saying that, the people who made those suggestions aren't being proactive, but I believe, maybe I disagree with the approach, I guess, as opposed to saying, what would be a good idea, this, that, and the third, and I'm gonna work on that. That's just kind of something I learned in that short time in middle management in corporate America. If you have a problem, you should have a solution when you introduce the problem. Even if it's not a working solution, you should have a solution. And I just want to land there. Thank you guys.
I appreciate you,
Thank
brother.
you.
Um,
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I
one.
just wanted to say real quick, in case Rock didn't hear what I said before. When I was asking about using the UN, I was told that no, because the United States controls them. Then I said, well, how about we, present it like this? No, you need a UN seat to present it. And none of the African countries agreed to do that. They prefer to help Arabs that have problems on the Gaza Strip and other things that have nothing to do with us. They've never tried to help Black Americans. So, if they have a procedure, then I'm going to look over the paperwork and see what the procedure is to go outside of what the norms are, which is to present your case from a UN seat. And I guess we do need to do that because they've already acknowledged that we are in need of and deserve reparations. So,
And just to push on the United Nations who controls it point a little bit harder, the five main countries of the United Nations that have a permanent member on the United Nations Security Council is China, France, Russia, the UK, and the United States. So if you're trying to hold any one of the five of them accountable, everybody else is little homies, and they ain't gonna speak up over these five nations. So it's really about, weaponizing four against the one, or maybe BRICS against America to be held
hmm
accountable. But I don't think just ranting to 194 nations, including ones that might look like us but had a hand in our oppression, is the best solution. But I'm not going to down somebody's strategy. Just I want to make it clear what the issues might be with it.
yeah.
Appreciate it,
Well,
Um,
Cash.
maybe go ahead, Professor. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Ontario's up. We're gonna be closing pretty shortly. We're gonna get two more speakers. Ontario was up earlier, and I think he got disconnected. So he's a new speaker. I'm gonna give Ontario a chance to speak. Ontario 360. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for inviting me into the room to speak. I've enjoyed the conversation and the knowledge that you guys are spitting out so far. So I've learned quite a bit from you guys. Um, what I wanted to just speak on real quick is the whole argument with the United Nations. Um, I think as far as the U.S. and their power of the veto and being on the Security Council of the United Nations, I think that there needs to be a push to invoke Article 6 in the UN, which states that a member of the United Nations which persistently violated the principles contained in the present charter may be expelled from the organization. So I think that there needs to be a push um, from all countries that are involved in the UN to invoke Article 6 against the United States because they are the biggest violators of human rights atrocities throughout the world. So I think that that would be a more viable option. And I think that there is a lot of discourse around getting Article 6 pushed in the UN against the US, especially in light of more recent events where we see like African nations saying that we're not being represented in the UN, and we need to like reconstruct the UN so that it's more fair across the board. And that whole Article 6 thing keeps getting pushed in that conversation. So I'm just wondering, like, are you guys familiar with Article 6? And if
no,
so, do you think it's a
never
viable
heard.
option?
I'll look into it. I've never heard of that.
I know the International Charter on Human Rights because I was in a theater show where we had to recite it. But um, what happens, if they call bluff? Like, so U.S. leaves the United Nations, like Britain left the European Union. What then, Canada? I mean, Ontario.
Um,
I'm just
well,
trying to think ahead.
if Article 6 is invoked and the U.S. is expelled from the UN, then they no longer are part of that Security Council. Therefore, they cannot veto any notion that's brought before the UN, which would make it easier um, for FBAs to plead their case at the UN without having the fear of that veto coming down from the US. Because from my understanding, um, whenever the plight of the FBA people is brought to the forefront at the UN, it's the US that keeps on vetoing these resolutions that they want to bring forth, especially with regards to reparation.
So you're saying it's a win-win? We either hold them accountable and they get afraid of getting expelled, or they actually expel themselves, and now we can use the UN against them since they don't have veto power. I like it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but we have to be careful with international law. It doesn't necessarily exist. I mean, it exists on paper, but how are you going to enforce it?
I'd like to find out where they vetoed it because I didn't see that it was presented like that. It just shows that they recommended giving reparations, but not that it was vetoed.
Well, then it's to Professor Alon's point and really Andrew Jackson's point. Like the court has made the decision. Now let's see them enforce it.
Mm. Yeah, there's no such thing as an international court system that actually has teeth. Like, so you
Right.
can,
But they hold African leaders accountable, though. That's what
because
I'm trying to say.
African leaders are in
They're all
they
goofballs.
yeah they need there's an exception. I'm talking about with ooh I'm gonna say
Yeah.
something real ugly, but yeah,
They ain't finna bust a grape on the motherfucking
Hey, but
Morgan
right.
we can
farm.
have
They're not
America.
gonna do nothing.
We can have America get our reparations, though, if they owe us. What I've been trying to say, though.
Yeah, I
Why
mean,
they ain't gonna veto that?
well, if anybody in here from the power structure is listening, you could make Africa pay reparations to foundational Black Americans because they did
Yeah, they
so.
need to pay.
They could, they could pay it in gold, and that's
Yeah, pay it with the mineral dividends.
I'll
Thank you.
I'll take gold.
Yep.
Hell, I take cocoa. That shit's delicious.
We'll take them diamonds too.
Cocoa.
Yeah, it tastes good. Last words go to Agent Zero. What's going on, Agent?
Well, y'all, what's going on, Professor? What's going on, Wani? What's going on, Room? I was gonna say, we're gonna ask rather, could we petition the World Court, or the Hague, and then
Yeah.
two, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, we could. They don't answer, but we need to get a mechanism to get a response from them. Continue. Sorry.
No, it's okay. And also too, now I don't know about as far as councils go, but isn't it three permanent general, excuse me, general members of the United Nations, and that's the United States, Israel, and England, and they can't like be put out of the United Nations?
Nah, it's five of them.
I
I
don't
just read
know.
them. It's
Oh,
China, France, Russia, UK, and US. No
all
Israel.
right.
Yeah.
And one more thing, and I'll land my plane. I went to school in Houston in a school district called Forest Brook Independent School District, and here in North Carolina, I went to school here too as well. But here in North Carolina, the school districts are by county, and by far in most counties, it is heavily the students are mostly white, and it is ran by mostly white people. Even your teachers are mostly white.
Right.
The education that I got here in Wake County compared to the education I got in Forest Brook, which was, and it seems like in Houston, like they have a Houston Independent School District, but then throughout the city, I don't know if they go by your representative or how many people it is in that area, but it is sectioned off like that. And in Forest Brook, it was I went to school with a Mexican dude and a white girl, and everybody else was black. All my teachers was black, and it was the best education that I got.
Facts.
When I moved back to when I moved back to North Carolina, it was totally different. It's like here, at that time when I came back here, at that time, over half of the 16-year-olds or half of the kids by the time they hit 16-year-old were dropping out of school. Um, and here in North Carolina, we had homework. I'm talking about out the ass. When you get home, you don't have any kind of time to be a kid or to retain what you learned in school because you're doing so much at home. In Forest Brook, we didn't have any schoolwork hardly at all. If we had tests that was going to come up, you may have some stuff to study. But those teachers made sure you learned that stuff in the class. And when I tell you every class I went to, um, they made sure that you learned everything. I'm talking about everybody learned what we were supposed to learn. No teacher didn't leave us behind at all. And I land my plane.
Well, the reason.
I wanted,
Go ahead, Wani.
okay, I wanted to give the Earth a chance to
Oh
talk
yeah, okay. I thought he talked already,
because
but go ahead.
no.
Go ahead, the Earth. I didn't know. I thought you talked already. My bad.
Hi,
Hey.
Professor
Hey,
Harwani, and to everyone in the room. I'm so glad that you guys are finally talking about the UN. I brought this crap up like 4 years ago to a group I was in. They're a bunch of ops, and everybody know that. I'm not going to say their names, but I brought it up. I was tweeting the the UN as late as I want to say 2023, but I used to tag them on a whole bunch of our posts about reparations and stuff like that. So honestly, I feel like this is the time. We on the world stage. They're talking about the Constitution, how these fucking immigrants is trying to tether on to us. I think this is the time. So we need to find out who we're gonna have speak for us, and we need to execute this, y'all. Seriously, and that's all I wanted to say.
Yes, and it should be, I don't know the procedure, but they've already said that I don't think we have to present a case. That's the whole thing. They've already told us we deserve reparations on a number of occasions.
Yes, they
And
did.
so
They sure
I don't
did.
even know what case we need to present, and I don't know what's holding it up. So, like I said, I'm going to look over the
I think they was
paperwork.
waiting on us.
I'm going to look over this paperwork and see what the requirements are. Also, I've already written letters to all these places, The Hague, the World Court, and the UN. They don't say anything. And they don't take letters from random people. So I guess we'll have to follow some other procedure. I'll look into it tomorrow.
That I'm talking through a mute. That sounds like a subject we might want to kind of discuss upon tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, I enjoyed y'all. I learned a lot. You know, I will look into the UN issue. If y'all need tips on, speaking and you want to bring this up again, I do teach constitutional law. Something I don't profess to be an expert, but I know a little bit about this tricky subject. Yeah, let's talk more about this. We're gonna bounce those ideas maybe tomorrow, if not very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I enjoyed y'all. I learned a lot. If you want a copy of my book, check out Our Story Publications. Put $25 on it and put your full address. Um, Coach, if you're in here, please give me your address. I need you. I didn't get your address. I need to send your book. Ladies and gentlemen, I enjoyed y'all and see y'all later on Tariq's show. Wani, you had last words.
Good night.
Love y'all. Good night.
Love y'all too. Peace out.
Good night,
Good night.
everyone.
Love y'all, black people.
Housing. Text me your number.
I
Bye
got
bye.
you. Capone.
Peace out, y'all.